So Firebase will give you support to make a request to register a user or maybe get some data back with a token and everything else. So they give you support to do that, to use authentication with tokens. So if we go to our, our project inside Firebase, right here, you're gonna go to the authentication and you're gonna get this, you're gonna get this screen. So to start it up, the first thing, you need to set up a sign-in method. You might get different options for sign up with GitHub, with Facebook, with Google, whatever. We're going to use the most classic one, which is the email and password. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to say enable and then save. So now, if we make a request to our URL, we're going to be able to register a user and get a token back and everything else. That's going to be handled by the Firebase endpoint. Of course, there's a lot of documentation for this. So let me bring the documentation right here if the computer is letting me. There we go. So if you go to Firebase Google Docs reference, and remember we are using the REST service right now. You get auth and you get this. You're going to get, of course, all the list of what you can do for registering users or working with authentication and Firebase as a REST service. Sometimes if you go to the web and try to find something, you're going to find some answers, but for the API, for the connector of Firebase, and it's really different than this. So that's not going to be good for us right now. So right here, you're going to have a list of all the things you can do. If you go to sign up with email and password, you're going to get a list of what you can do. And right here, you're going to get the endpoint. So the endpoint is going to be this URL. So we need to make a request to this URL. It's going to end with sign up new user. And right here, you're going to have a key. So whenever you start a project inside Firebase, you get a key, which is the key of your application. And the key is going to be right here. If you go to web setup, you click it, you're going to have an API key. So this is what you're going to be passing on that request to add a new user. And the Firebase is going to know that, of course, it's your application and it will add the user to your endpoint. So I'm going to copy the API key because we are going to need it in a few seconds. And I'm going to go to the articles actions, and I'm not going to create a user's actions. I'm just going to handle everything from the same file. So we can save time. We're going to spend a lot of time on the practice project. So I'm going to do API key, could be Firebase API key, but we know that this is the Firebase API key. Okay, so I'll make it this nice. So now what we need to do, I'm going to create a new view right now, which is going to be pretty much a copy of input data. And let me do it right now. I'm going to create a new folder. It's going to be login because we're going to be, maybe login or register a user. Doesn't matter. So I'm going to go to login, and login, I'm going to add an index.js. So this file, this login, is going to contain pretty much the same thing we have on input data. So I'm going to go to input data, select everything, just select everything. I'm going to copy and go back to login and paste it. Okay, I'm going to save it. And now I'm going to get rid of the things we don't really need right here. So I'm going to delete this from actions, from store actions. Everything else is going to be the same. Of course, the name of the class needs to change. So instead of input data, we're going to be, login user. Login user. Right. Instead of a title and body, we're going to have an email, and the password, right? Password. And of course, we need to change all the other things. Since this one is email, it's going to be email, and on this one, email, right? Same thing for password, password, and then password. So we are doing this so we can save a little bit of time, right? So of course, we are not going to do this. So I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to delete this. And instead of add post, it's going to be add user. And of course, we're going to do something else right here. And this one, we are not going to really use it right now. We're going to do something, but not right now. Just going to comment this out, not delete it. So now, of course, we need to change all the things we have inside our component. If we have email and password, we need to do email and password, right? On the body, password. Of course, the name of the functions we are making reference, they changed. So handle email input, I'm going to copy so I can avoid any typos. Then handle password, same thing for the password. Good. So right here is going to be email, the text, you know, the label email, and then the password. All right. So we have email, password. The state is going to be email and password. The styles still input, and we are making a reference to the correct function. So the only thing left is to make a reference to the add user function. Right here, instead of add post, it's going to be add user, and instead of the other class is going to be login user right here at the bottom. And for now, we are not going to be passing anything to the dispatch. So this is pretty much ready. So instead of making a reference right here to the import to the input data, I'm going to make a reference to the login section. So import login user from there we go, ./source/ and login, and that's it, because we have an index. I don't need to change it. And instead of here, I'm going to say login user. I'm going to reload the application, and instead of a title and body, we should be getting email and password. Okay, so that is working. And if I type something, it's going to be updating the state, so we have a controlled component. Right, so the next thing is going to be creating an action to register and use a user. So let's do that. All right, so let's create the action right here. So I'm going to export a function at the bottom, export function, and maybe register user. Then of course we're going to comment this out and do a login user, because it's a little bit different. So the register user is going to be get the email and the password. So we're going to get some data right here at the top, right? Okay. So this one is going to make a request to whatever we have inside of the documentation. Let me bring the documentation. So if I call, there we go, REST API. So we need to make a request. Let me close this. We need to make a request to here. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go back to actions and store it right here at the top. So const register. So you know, of course, when you go back to this docs, when you create your own application, that this one is going to be the register URL. And of course, we need to remove the API key because we're going to be passing it later. Okay. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to go right here at the bottom. And what we need to do, we need to start making the request for this. So it's going to be const request. Let me make it right. I don't have a caps lock on my keyboard because I don't have the original keyboard from Mac. So it's going to, sometimes I get confused. So const request, and it's going to be equal to Axios and open and close. And of course, we need to pass a lot of things. The method is going to be post, right? There we go. So then we need to pass the URL. So the URL is going to be whatever URL we have as register, right? So I'm going to copy, go at the bottom, and say we want to use the URL register. Okay, let me make this as a template string, and okay. Now this one needs the API key. If we check at the bottom, at the top, we have key equal to, and since we have the API key right here, I'm gonna just put the API key. So I'm gonna copy, go at the bottom, and it's gonna be with the API key. That's good, it looks nice. So then of course, since we are registering a new user, we need to enter the user with the email and the password. So I'm gonna do comma, I'm gonna go at the bottom, and we're gonna send the data, pass the data. And the data has an email, has a password, just like this. And we have one more thing, and if it's right here in the documentation, we have something that says return secure token. And this one is gonna be really important for us. The type is gonna be a Boolean, true or false. So when we register a user, it will give you back a token. And that token, we will use that token to check if the user is authenticated, if we want to, I don't know, maybe post an article or something like that. So the token, it's important. We're going to talk about the token in a minute. So this one is going to be true. Now the email is going to be inside data email. There we go, email. Then comma, and the password is going to be inside data then password, right? And then comma. You could use template strings right here. I don't know why I didn't. Doesn't matter. So I'm going to do comma, and we need to set the headers. And the headers are, again, really important for this. So we need to set the content type, and the content type, it's application.json. So content, let me make it a little better. Content type. There we go, content type, and the capital T, and the value for this is application that /JSON. If you ask me how many times I did this in my life, you wouldn't believe. So okay, so then of course we get a response, and since we get a response, what we want to do is to return the response.data, and this is what is going to go to Redux. So we return, open and close, a type of and register user, or just maybe user register, right? Then of course we have the payload, so we say payload and whatever we get from the whatever we get back from the request. All right, a lot of talking. So this looks nice, looks like it's gonna work. We need to add this to the reducers. So I'm gonna go to article reducer, and like I told before, we are using just one reducer just to save time. So case, we do case, open and close, and user register, and this one is going to be return, open and close, ... state, and now I don't know, new user, makes sense? New user, and new user again action.payload, right? So inside new user, after we add the user to the database, we will get the data back from here. In a minute, we're going to see why this is important. So okay, so we are inputting the data. Sorry, not input data. We are not going to use this one anymore for now. On the login, we need to bring this action, this register user, from same place, stored the actions. I'm going to pass it to the bind action creators. And now on the whenever we submit the form, we need to do this .props.register user. What we're going to be passing is the email and password. So we're going to say this, that state, and that's it for now. Okay. Of course, there's no validation in real life. This is going to get much bigger on the next few sections when we reach the practice. It's going to get a lot, much bigger than this. Okay, so I'm going to save it. I'm going to go and open the debugger. I'm going to reload the application. And I don't know, the email, maybe francis@gmail.com, and the password is password123. And remember what you're entering for this, because we're going to be using on the login section, on the next section. We're going to be doing a login, and we need to log in to with a proper email and password, right? So I'm going to add, and we're going to get something back from the server, and we have a new user, and the new user, we get all of this back. So if we go to the database, let me close this. Inside users, because we enable this, if we go to users, you can have a list of all the users and some additional things. So again, it's the email, you have an ID for the user and everything else. So let's go back to the debugger. So you get the email back, all right? And it says expires in. So, and then you get an ID token. So whenever you register a user or log in, for example, you're gonna get a token back. This token is let's say it's a code, something that Firebase is gonna do, and this is gonna be just a hashed password with something else and everything else, okay? That's good. It's just a token, something for this user. And this token, it's the the ID, the password the user is gonna use to navigate through the application, make requests to the API and to Firebase and everything else. So this token, it's really important. If we make a request that requires authentication and this token, it's not valid, of course, nothing is going to happen. Firebase will reject that action. Now this token, and this we cannot change this. The token, it's valid only for 1 hour. So we have it right here. So only 1 hour. After 1 hour, if you're trying to make a request with this token, it will not work anymore. And we cannot change this. We cannot change it at all. If you check the Firebase, documentation, they're gonna say, dude, it's like this. Use it or don't use it. So we cannot change this. But what we get a refresh token. So maybe in the future, and we're going to do this later on the practice project, we're going to try to do something with the ID token. And if the ID is expired, what we're going to do, we're going to use the refresh token. So if the refresh token is okay, it's going to refresh the token and it's going to let the user pass. Again, we're going to need all of this. That's why it's important whenever you register a user to do the return secure token. And same thing when you log in a user. Okay, so that's good. We are able to register users. Let's see how to log in.